G'day cocktail lover, what can I get for you today? I wanted a traditional New Orleans drink. My excuse was I just read that it's the 210th anniversary of Louisiana becoming part of the United States. But really, they're just my favorite style of drink. Ah, man after my own heart. I love those boozy Louisiana classics. That's an amazing coincidence. I know, what are the odds our taste in drinks would be the same? So which New Orleans drink do you recommend? Well, the official drink of New Orleans is the Sazerac, so I think we should go with that. Do you make it with brandy or with rye? That's a big decision. The Sazerac, according to folklore, was originally made with brandy, specifically cognac, but then it became more popular to make it with rye whiskey. Some people even make it with a bourbon. I mean, after all, it's fairly closely related to an old-fashioned. It uses a different bitters to an old-fashioned, doesn't it? Yes, it uses arguably the second most famous bitters after angostura, New Orleans' own Peychaud's bitters. How big a difference does the bitters make? Good question. Essentially, different bitters can make a different drink. The best analogy I've heard is as spices are to a chef, so is bitters to a bartender. It's rarely the main event of what you're serving up, but it's a big part of the overall character and flavour of what you're serving to your customer. And is your main ingredient going to be brandy or whiskey? I am going to do a split base, and I'm actually taking a tip from the Difford's Guide website. I'm going to do a three-way split. It's going to be a brandy, rye whiskey, and another whiskey forming the base. But before we get around to that, we've got to do the absinthe rinse. How much absinthe does an absinthe rinse mean? There are a few different ways to do it, but it's important to remember we're just after a hint of the absinthe flavour because it's a very strong flavour. Now, some people will put absinthe in an atomizer and spray the inside of the glass to get that mist in there. Some people will pour a little in the glass, swirl it around, and then tip it upside down. And whatever doesn't stick to the glass, you just chuck out. Well, that seems like a waste. I agree. I hate the idea of wasting some of my most expensive spirit, namely absinthe. So I'm taking yet another tip from the Difford's Guide website. It's you're getting two birds with one stone here. What we do is we get the glass we're going to serve in, put ice in it. Now that serves the purpose of chilling the glass, which is always important. Then we put a little bit of absinthe, a third to a half of an ounce of absinthe over the top of the ice, and we set that aside. And when we're ready and have finished mixing our drink, we will strain the absinthe out of that into a shot glass and chuck out the ice, and then you've got a chilled glass with an absinthe rinse, put your drink in, and you've got a little shot of absinthe as a chaser. Win-win! 2 drinks for the price of 1! Exactly! You get a bonus. So with that set aside, our glass chilling, we make the drink. Now I'm going to do 3/4 of an ounce of each of the base spirits. And I'm going to make this a cosmopolitan global affair. First up, we're doing a French brandy. You can use the brandy, cognac of your choice if you're making this at home. This is one I quite like from Saint Remy at VSOP. So first up, 3/4 of an ounce, about 22.5 mils of brandy in our mixing glass. Next are rye whiskey, and we're going with an Australian rye whiskey, a limited edition from the Archie Rose Distillery they call Whiskey Gone Awry. Now this is a really robust rye whiskey. This has a stronger rye flavour than most rye whiskies I've tried, and it's a bit beefy. It is 52%, so 104 proof. It's going to have a nice little flavour in there. Yet again, 3/4 of an ounce, 22.5 mils, this time of the rye whiskey. For the final base spirit, I'm going with a bourbon, slightly unusual one. This one's from California. You don't get too many California bourbons, but I picked this one up recently and it's quite nice, and it's a slightly higher than usual as well. It's 47.5% rather than usual 40%. So this drink's got a little bit of kick in it. So we're going to go with 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 mils of bourbon. A little sweetener in the drink now. Some people will actually use granulated sugar. I'm going to use about 10 mils, 1/3 of an ounce of sugar syrup in our mixing glass. The final touch is some bitters, and here's a fun experiment in how much difference bitters make, because these are only subtly different bitters. I'm going to make you 2 of these. One with your standard Peychaud's bitters, and this special one I got, bourbon barrel-aged Peychaud's bitters. So rather than radically different bitters, it's going to be 2 slightly different ones, and then we'll have a look at what difference that makes to the taste profile. Each time it's going to be 3 dashes. So in this one, I'm going to put 3 dashes of Peychaud's bitters, and that will be followed by 1 dash of Angostura bitters. I'll also make you a second Sazerac, the one difference being the different Peychaud's bitters. And here are your 2 Sazeracs. Time for a taste test. Right, double fisting for the win. I love this drink. You know what? This one has some smoky notes that the other one doesn't have. All the other flavors come through, but there's just this really bit of smoke subtlety coming through. It's from those barrel-aged bitters, yeah? So there's your answer on, do bitters make a difference? Yes, even subtly different bitters will give you a different flavor profile in a drink. Radically different bitters will make essentially a whole new drink. There's so much to explore out there. Bitters are just one more thing that adds richness and complexity to the world of cocktails. That's why I don't think I'll ever get bored exploring cocktails. I hope you come back for more as well. Until I see you again, cheers!